Namaste. That would say third time's a charm. Well, this is the third time I've started to do this video. And I don't know. I'm going to talk about Buddha, Sakyamuni, the traditional Buddha, the historical Buddha, the Buddha, we like to call him. I'm going to talk about I'm going to read from my iPad, and I'll share that I've got the print real big this time so that I can really see it. But this is someone's take, and they were anonymous, so I don't feel necessary to give credit. But kudos to whoever out there who put this together, because it's useful for me. And then I'm going to talk about some of the differences, and because this is kind of mainstream ideas of what Buddha was. And this, I have to say that this came from a Hindu source. Okay, Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, the non-dualism. I think it came from that, or one of the. Anyway, it was more leaned towards the Hindu tradition, of course, which Buddha was born into, raised in, and because he didn't become enlightened until he was 35, and so he lived as a Hindu. There was no Buddhism until after he had passed. And it's unfortunate because, when Christ was alive, there wasn't any Christianity. And both of them had this in common. Jesus never said, become a Christian. He said, become a Christ. And Buddha never said, become a Buddhist. He said, become a Buddha. Okay? So with that, having said that, first of all, I just wanted to say something. I'll save that till the appropriate time. He said, I am not God. Okay? It's important because even today, a lot of the Buddhists here in Taiwan worship him as a god. I'm not a diva. A diva is a godly spirit, a higher realm, like an angel. Nor am I a human. I am the awakened one who has seen the truth of the world. This is where I like it. He did a meticulous analysis of his mind in such a way that he was able to count all the atoms in his body. And I want to stop here and share with you that one of the Trikaya, when I became the Trikaya is the three Buddhas. And it's all in one and all, but it's different levels of enlightenment. The first is becoming the lover. And that's the compassion. That's the original. That's when you just are waking up. You become the lover. But remember, you're immature. You're immature Buddha, and you have to mature. You have to learn. So you're the lover. You love everything. You love yourself first and foremost, which will lead directly to loving everybody because you'll recognize you and all the others. You are one. And number two is the process of loving. So you're the lover, and then you can teach the process of loving. That's the Dharma. That's the teachings. So after you've woken up and you're not really prepared to start sharing the teachings, that's Buddha number two. And then number three is the beloved, when the Buddha actually enters into your body. And I've shared just this past June that I reached this third level of the Trikaya, this third level of awareness, this third level of awakening where the beloved Buddha came into my body. So when I'm speaking about the Buddha, I'm speaking as a Buddha about the one that's responsible. Although there was Buddhas before him and many Buddhas after him, he's the shine, just as Christ. He's the shining being that changed so many, had the most powerful impact on so many people's lives. So he said he's able to count all the atoms in his body. He says, I don't know if I repeated this. He did a meticulous analysis of his mind in such a way that he was able to count all his atoms of his body. Yes, I've shared that. And I was sharing with you when I reached this, the beloved state. Leading up to the Trikaya, I could see every cell in my body. I could see every cell in my body. I could see every cell in my body. And when I shared with somebody, they said, well, you know that, yes, but that's probably all the millions of Buddhas that come when the Buddha comes to sit within. There's millions of Buddhas. And I experienced this. My experience was being able to, I could meticulously count all the cells in my body. And at another stage of this, I'm switching devices. At another stage of this awareness, just very recently, I became very aware of the chemical reactions in my brain and how it influenced mood. It didn't change me. It influenced my mood. And I found that there's 37 billion chemical reactions per second in our body. And I just want to take the same scale that Buddha's talking about. 37,000 billion, unimaginable number, per second that's taking place. And at that moment that I became aware of how the chemical reactions were affecting me, I was literally aware of the 37,000 billion. How's that possible? Well, I just can share with you that I was aware of each and every one of those 37,000 billion chemical reactions per second. So here's the Buddha talking about count all the atoms in his body. Probably a larger number than I'm dealing with. It might be, I'm not sure how many cells here in the body, but you know, now you have to take this in his, the science, where science was at his day. So he talks about atoms in the body. It's pretty amazing that 2,600 years ago, they were already aware of atoms. He said that nothing in this world is solid, meaning that it's real. I'm knocking on the table and I'm pointing to my computer. I'm holding up a bowl. We appear to be solid, but it's 98%, I believe, empty space. The modern meaning of which somebody's helping us in, the modern meaning of which is that everything is made up of atoms, and these atoms are repeatedly broken down and reformed. He was famous for another reason, that he taught people of all languages in their own language whoever met him. So, according to this, it seems like a legend to me that, you know, if he's with Russians, he could speak Russian all of a sudden, some magic way. And what I've found, being in my teacher who didn't speak English and I don't understand Mandarin, particularly on the level of any spiritual teaching, even native speakers of Mandarin don't get what he's saying a lot of the times. It's just too esoteric. But I would take this to mean that I would sit in his presence and I would sit with him and he would communicate heart to heart. So the way I would look at this is that he could transcend language and communicate in a universal language. And this is, even though normally Pali the language of most of the people, that not Sanskrit, because Sanskrit was for the more educated, but Pali language was the language that was spoken by that part of that particular people in India. It was the common language. And he said, no animal would ever harm him while meditating in the deep forest. It is believed that animals were attracted to him. They looked at him calmly because of the power of the metta. And metta, that's funny, this Facebook with one T, this is two T's. Amity and benevolence. Metta is amity and benevolence. And I'm sure that's not what Mark Zuckerberg meant. He's talking about the metasphere or something. But metta, from the Sanskrit, amity, good spirit, goodwill, and benevolence, kindness. He gave the theory of rebirth. So see, the Hindus talk about this more. This is interesting. This is a Hindu take. They're more into reincarnation, and Buddha, from the Buddhist perspective, didn't really address this idea of reincarnation or rebirth. He observes himself spontaneously and said that he had become the Buddha in this birth because of the deeds of all his previous births. Now, I'm kind of correcting this. I'm putting my take on this as I go. Actually, he became the Buddha when he gave up trying, when he surrendered. He had tried everything. And rather than attribute it to the culmination of karma, the culmination of good births and good deeds. This remains unsaid, mostly unstated in a more traditional take, the Zen Buddhism, the Buddhism from China onto Korea and to Japan, that I've been trained in and that I've gravitated towards. The ultimate goal is escape samsara. And here we call it nibbana, which means liberation from the cycle of life and death. Samsara, the sorrow that's created from being separated from home. Nibbana. I like new words. Then they talk about some famous no-goods that he was able to help, even though originally they would challenge him. From a very young age, he would never make jokes. Why is this here? Never made fun. Maybe jokes meant that it was a criticism. Always had a glimpse of a smile on his face that fascinated. I like that. Maybe I have a glimpse of a smile. When I'm not smiling, there's a glimpse. Maybe there's a glimpse. And then some legend, and I won't read about this. Now, interesting enough. Now, this is like probably the image of Christ, blue-eyed, blonde-haired. Here, look what they talk about Buddha. Had a very good look. Blue eyes, broad shoulders, long ears, mild crimped hair, and was full of benevolence and mercy. It is said that a bright halo would come out of his fair body. His complexion appeared clear and brighter on 2 occasions, before the moment of enlightenment and before the movement of parinibbana. Parinibbana means when you finally escape the need to reincarnate. That's the everlasting. I'm going to go get a little help here. I know I have it right here. Okay, there. It's the nirvana after the last birth, that you just enter in a constant state. Then they talk about his memory, blah, blah, blah. He could memorize everything. He practiced fasting, and he taught by traveling long distance on foot. He brought, just as my teacher would travel from his teaching location all around the island, he would travel. Well, that's the tradition of the Buddha traveled, and he brought his, people didn't congregate and come to him. He brought his message. He brought his family to wake up. Now, remember that he said that, now this is interesting. The most fascinating thing about Buddha is that we can see him as a human like us. A man with a beautiful mind. He is not God, nor a god, nor a prophet. He is perfect just as a human being, lived and died like human being. There's no promise of heaven in his religion, no threat of hell, no need to pray, no compulsory to follow him, no mandatory rituals. Following his teaching makes one a better person. The Dharma, that's the teaching, is not harmed if one does not follow it. He or she would just miss the opportunity to be a better human. So remember how we started up here. It's interesting. We started up here, they said, when they attributed to Buddha, they said that I am not God, I'm not a diva, nor am I a human. I am the awakened one. But at the very end, let's read those words before, because they're my very favorite. The most fascinating thing about Buddha is that we can see him as a human like us. So it makes all of the 7,800 other awakened beings on this planet who are human. We're talking about them, me and them. A human like us, a man with a beautiful mind. He's not God, nor a god, nor a prophet. He is a perfect, he's as a human being. He lived and died like other human beings. There is no promise of heaven in this religion, no threat of hell. And what it doesn't mention here, and I want to throw in, is that he had a personality, okay? He definitely had a personality. And now I want to get to the topic, and I'm scrolling, and I hate it, but you might be used to it by now. But today's topic is a very interesting topic that I want to. So I just want to introduce the Buddha because there's some fun things. And remember, it was a different take. This was an old translated document, and it was from a Hindu before that Buddhism really took root. And my favorite thing that's attributed to the Buddha, because like any historical figure, we have to take everything, everything happened afterwards. But somewhere along the line, either he said it, I suspect he said it because I think I mentioned it in the recent video. Always being, always becoming. And this is to share. This is to share with us that it's not static. You don't become a Buddha and that's the end. You don't end samsara, the suffering of the wheel of life, of birth and rebirth. You continue to move on. And samsara is really, it's the suffering, but it's the suffering based on having forgotten from whence you came. the yearning for being home, the yearning for wholeness, the futility of recognizing, much less celebrating, an independent, separate, and divided outlook on the world. The ego, your sense of self in the little s, that somehow each human being is unique. And I can go along with that, unique in their opportunity and unique in how they will wake up, how they will remember the forgotten. That's unique for sure. Just as our fingerprints, so I'm looking at thumbprints, just as our fingerprints are unique, just as each snowflake is unique. But if everybody put up their hands, it would be just hands. And when snowflakes fall, each individual, it becomes snow. Just as when each drop from the ocean returns to the ocean, where it becomes just the ocean, where all rivers flow. Maybe unique, but they all become the same. And that's important. We're all the same. We all have this birthright, this unique heritage. And so this is a continual, I've said many times and I'll say it again, change is the only constant. And this is reassuring when you take a look at one of those tough times, and you can rest assured that it too will pass. And you have to learn equanimity, which will help you to look at the good times, let the good times and let the bad times roll, and your response is the same. Good times, bad times matters not. What matters is compassion. And celebrating, being joyful, celebrating your natural state of living in perpetual joy. And if you're not joyful this moment, it's on you. You've forgotten that what you're breathing in joy, you're living in joy, just as a fish lives in water. We live in joy. There's joy everywhere I look around me. It's all joy. Joy is what fills the voids, what we appear as. I said 90%, 98% of anything is not solid. I'm going to look at the great void, but this void is full of joy. So let's look at this. Always being, always becoming. He uses, look, the gerund form. That's the ing. When you put to be, it's the verb form, to be. But being, the gerund, the ing, makes it a continual action. So it's not to be or not to be. It's not to be or not to be. It's being. Okay? So, always being is continual. Always evolving, always changing, always expanding. Just as our universe, from what we can observe now, is constantly expanding. It will expand and expand to infinity. So, what's the result of always being? What happens when you're always being? You're always becoming. Every cell in your body is renewed, from what I understand, about every 7 years. Our body replaces every cell in our body. So, if you look at it that way, I'm not the same person. Definitely, even a physical body isn't the same body I had 7 years ago. That's pretty obvious. I think that's aging. But I'm a little uncomfortable. Sorry, I'm trying to find some place to put my legs went to sleep. I'm sharing. I like to share the words of there's something. Okay. I like to share the process with you. I'm far from perfect, and I just want to share that I'm okay with that, and I want you to be okay with that. So let's look at the second half, always becoming. So I talked about the trikaya, the lover, the process of loving, and the beloved. It's the complete package. Trikaya, 3 Buddhas. Although it's the same Buddha, it's just becoming. So I woke up as a lover. Actually, I woke up as a helpless infant on the dirty ground, feeling completely isolated and helpless. But because of Buddha years, maybe every 6 years, every year in a human life represents 6 Buddha years. So it wasn't long. That first year was kind of a struggle. And it's unlike an infant that's nurtured. I didn't have mother's milk. I didn't have warmth. I didn't have just loneliness and darkness and coldness and overwhelming sense of helplessness. But after 1 year, I was 6. And I don't think we give kids credit enough. I think a 6-year-old can go make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? Even a 6-year-old could, probably younger. But at 6, what did happen is now I got full of myself, and that spiritual ego popped up. So, becoming the lover, and before I could live the Dharma, the process of loving the Dharma, step number 2, in between the lover and under the process of loving the Dharma, being ready to share the Dharma in between, my spiritual ego, boy, that was a tough one. The spiritual ego just sneaks up. You're special. I'm awake, and I remember sharing with friends. I woke up, and I think, after the first they were, yeah. I think consequently they just thought, yeah, right. Because they didn't see any, I wasn't walking on water, they didn't see any tremendous change. But I took pride, I just felt that somehow I had done something that other people hadn't. And that, while that may be true, it doesn't make me special. It makes me very ordinary once you really learn that all I did is wake up to what I always knew. Wake up to all that there was. Stop dreaming. Stop imagining. Put the ego to rest. But this other ego came up. So I had to really embrace, through surrender, really embrace my ordinariness. That, okay, everyone's going to wake up. Everyone's a Buddha. They're just in different stages of sleep, from deep sleep to a light slumber, to that state just before you wake up. But everyone, when it's your time, and it will come, and we'll be all in it together, as we already are. The only one that separates you from anything, is from being what you are, is yourself. That's it. Nothing else. I remember thinking, maybe there's a secret Dharma, the secret teachings. And there are secret teachings that the teacher departs to the student, but it's all done by in-shing, heart to heart. There's no words for it. It's not like sitting down and they give you a book and say, okay, you do these things and bingo. No, you have to figure out. You have to learn to listen. So through the process of surrender, and accepting my ordinariness. And not only accepting, but reveling in, I'm so happy to be an ordinary. I wouldn't want to be anything else because I couldn't be anything else. It's so ordinary. Like breathing, like my heartbeat. To remember the forgotten. To dwell in a constant state of oneness and unity in infinity. And notice that there are no emptinesses, that everything is filled with joy. So I grew. 4 or 5 years passed, and that would make me, let's say 5. I started to be 30. Well, maybe 6 years before I really started, I felt qualified. I felt like I had anything worth sharing. And most of it, I didn't start making these videos, which I have done my real sharing with. I didn't start doing those until I was just before my 70th birthday. I was 69. What a fortuitous number. 69 on January 18th when I started these. And on March 4th, that same year, 2018, I turned 60. So I wasn't really in 60 until I started sharing the Dharma. No, I got that wrong. I was 69, like I said, and I became 70 when I started sharing the Dharma. Aha. Okay, so I stayed in that stage for another human years, another 4 years until this past summer, the Buddha, until I became the beloved, the Trikaya, the Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, as the Christians say. The Trinity has always been so sacred. Just like my number is 3, and then like 3 is the completion. 3 is perfection. And that's why I'm going to do 333 of these videos. And if I'm counting right, I got 15 more to go. So until such time, remember, you're a human being, not a human doing. And you're always being, and you're always becoming. Moment to moment, which is what we live in, we learn to live in, which I embrace. But I'm different than I was a moment ago. I'm a different man looking at you than I was 33 minutes and 33 seconds ago. Think about that. Ah!